It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That band is called The Assassin's Blade. And that was The Demented Force.
I like that.
Yeah, very Judas Priestish.
Sure.
So a lot of great bands out there that you probably never heard of or are not familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And we're bringing them here to you on the Classic Metal Show.
You heard it here first, folks.
Exactly. All right. Well, I was thinking about maybe doing a couple music stories.
Okay.
But I got so much other stuff that I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump right into something that I shared with you earlier this week.
Right.
And since you are already apprised of this, I want to jump on this and get your input, because when I read this, I was just like, we're never going to have any answers to, problems here as long as people have an agenda that is more important than the actual problem.
Right, which is everything now.
Yeah.
Everything is only about agenda, and the problem doesn't seem to matter anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the problem needs to get solved as long as it infringes on other people's rights, but,
Right.
But if it goes against my personal agenda, then that's not the answer.
Right.
And what I'm talking about here is, obviously the story that has basically dominated the news over the last week and a couple of days was the school shooting that happened in Florida.
Right.
And, of course, this brings up the age-old discussion about gun control.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody ever defines what gun control means.
Yeah, it means letting the government control it.
Well, the thing is that we need better gun control laws.
You're saying that, or they're saying
No,
that?
that's the wisdom that's being passed along, is that we need better gun control laws.
Yeah.
And the thing is that there are a lot of gun control laws already in place, but
Sure.
the laws don't stop people from doing whatever it is they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's enforcement and prevention that keeps people in check.
Right.
You're not allowed to walk into a crowded concert and set off a bomb. I mean, there's a law against that. That's called terrorism.
There's a law against that?
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. The law says, hey, you're not allowed to set off a bomb or explosives in a crowded, public place.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed to do that. That's what the law says.
Sure.
Does that prevent anybody from being a terrorist and going into a crowded marketplace, or like over in France,
Right.
during concerts and setting off a bomb? Does the law prevent that?
No. No, not at all.
So what kind of a law could possibly be put in place to prevent tragedies like the shooting in Florida?
Dude, what anybody that's ever been convicted of a crime didn't give a shit about the law.
That's correct.
Whatever the crime was. Whatever the law was. If the law was that you're not allowed to steal from a convenience store and you stole a fucking candy bar, you broke the law. The law didn't matter to you. That's
correct.
There's no... It doesn't have to go all the way to guns. It's anywhere. Anytime anytime you break a law, you're proving that you don't give a shit about the law. Let's talk about these fucking dreamers. What are they? Lawbreakers. They came over here illegally. They didn't follow the law to stay here. So, pick your poison, I guess. Guns bad, dreamers good.
Right.
That's a law we don't need to enforce, right? We don't need to enforce immigration laws. We do need to enforce shooting laws or gun laws. The logic of the left is so fucking stupid, it is not even funny.
Well, when people keep uttering the term gun control, what they're really saying is we want to outlaw guns.
Yeah, of course.
We want to take the guns away from everyone.
Good luck with that.
Well, but that's really what they're trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people argue it too much, though, to be honest. And I know I've jumped in a little bit this week myself on it, but, you know, there is a simple reality to it. Go ahead and try. You know, it's not worth the overwhelming argument for weeks and weeks and weeks anymore. My answer to any of this stuff is go ahead and try. Go ahead and try to take mine and see if I don't lose every round that I have in this house and then my life before you get my gun.
Right.
You may get it, but you're going to get it the hard way. And I think there's 100 million people that own guns in the States?
Yes.
Like that. I think 75 million of them are with me on that. They will empty out every round they have before they will surrender their gun.
All right, and Charlton Heston, you'll have to peel it from my cold, dead hands.
Right. Well, there's truth to that. Look, you know, call me a Alex Jones conspiracy theorist or whatever the fuck you want to, but I ain't going down like the Jews in the fucking Hitler 30s.
That never happened.
Apparently not. How that can just be forgotten? How and I know it's not the 30s, it's almost 100 years later, but you know, you look at Mao, you look at Stalin, you look at Hitler, you look at all these overthrows of great numbers of people. They all had that same similar thing in common. They took the weapons away. They made the people helpless, and then they fucking took them over. Look at North Korea right now. No weapons and total control. You know, because the military has fucking weapons. You know, it's basic simplicity. If you don't have a weapon, you can't fight back with somebody that does.
Right.
No matter what, you may get lucky. You might, if you get into a fight and all you have is your two fists and somebody has a gun, you could potentially get lucky and they miss you with that first shot and you choke them and break their neck or something to where they don't kill you. But what are the odds of that?
Right.
How is there a fair fight there? And there should be a fair fight there. You should at least be allowed to have the tools to have a fair fight. If you don't want to engage in those tools, don't buy a gun. But don't tell me I can't have mine. Go fuck yourself.
Exactly.
You know.
Well, the overall message that has been relayed for decades now, especially when something like this happens, is we've got to protect the children. We've got to protect the children.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the mantra that you hear again and again. Well, what about the children? We got to protect the children.
Yeah.
Well, there are numerous ways of protecting the children, especially in a schoolroom, classroom setting. Mm-hmm. I saw a video on YouTube this week of a school here in Indiana that's outfitted with cameras, even smoke, where it would, if they detect an intruder, that it locks all the classroom doors immediately.
Sure.
And they're able to track the intruder through the school, and they're able to cordon them off.
Right.
You know, and they actually have like a smoke, what do you want to call it? It actually will fill the hallway with smoke.
Right.
And blind the guy. Or
yeah, so they can't see where they're going.
Exactly.
Right.
And you know, it is available. I mean, obviously there is a cost, but they go, well, if it saves one life, it's worth it.
Okay.
So the cost of this system that I was watching on the YouTube, it's an Indiana school. They call it the safest school in the nation.
Yeah.
Because it's a test school where they are testing the system.
Mm-hmm.
And the reporter basically showed how the system worked.
Right.
Looks pretty good. Nice security system for intruders.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one way of doing it.
Sure.
Then another way of doing it is some people suggested that they have, armed patrol people that patrol the halls or are security guards, more or less.
Sure.
Well, that's no good.
Right. Of course not.
And here's the reason why.
Mm-hmm.
Again, keep in mind that the overall consensus is we have to protect the children.
Sure.
Okay. Well, one of the suggestions of protecting the children is having security officers working at the school.
Right.
Keeping an eye out, being vigilant, checking out any problems. Sounds like a pretty good plan to me.
Sure.
If the school budget allows for it, or if they, pass a levy that would actually, put that money aside for that, I say it's worth it. Especially for the people who say we got to protect the children.
Okay.
You would think so anyway.
You would think.
Well, when President Donald Trump held a listening session with survivors of gun violence, their family members and the parents of the murdered students on Wednesday, much of the discussion focused on ways to enhance school security. The president recommended arming the teachers.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
I'm for it.
Okay.
I mean, the real thing with arming the teachers is you got to find a way to secure the weapons so that the kids don't get them. You got to have some way to secure it so that the kid does, some kid can't just open a drawer that the teacher leaves unlocked and get it.
That's correct.
Or jimmy a drawer or something. It's got to be some kind of like a safe locking system.
Or some kind of like a key card or something like that.
Yeah, and it has to be something that, comes with it can only be opened if there's like an alert through the school or something like that. Right. It can't just be open because somebody knows the combination.
Sure.
It has to be, an ongoing threat has to be made happening or something. And I don't know the exact way to do it, but I'm all for that. Why not? Okay. I know the teacher's probably, I'm not going to carry a gun because I'm against it. Shut up.
All right. So the president recommended arming the teachers, while one parent suggested that undercover police officers pose as teachers and school staff. Several parents called for more security officers at the school. Okay, so there's a few ideas right there.
Sure.
Well, none of those are any good.
No, they're bad.
They're bad.
Because they don't involve taking every gun. They're bad. They involve actually using the weapons for what they're for.
Yeah, that doesn't fit with the agenda of removing the guns from everybody.
Yeah. How dare you put these weapons in play to use them for exactly what they're built for? How dare you do that?
Right. There's scant evidence that more cops and security guards on campuses will actually stop school shootings.
Well, I believe that to be true. Actually, I agree with that liberal point, to be honest. It's not going to stop anything. If your mindset is to go and shoot up a place, you're going to do it. What are we going to put? I mean, the bigger picture, and this is what drives me crazy, and we'll come back to the schools in a second, but let's say for the sake of argument, they come up with the magic plan for the schools. Is that going to end mass shootings?
No.
No, it's just going to shift somewhere else. It's going to go to the movie theater, or it's going to go to the fucking concert hall, or it's going to more than likely, and I'm surprised, and I hate to put this idea out there because I'm not, but, I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. I'm surprised there hasn't been more or any shootings coming out of a large event, to where there would be no security at all, like coming out of the Super Bowl. Not necessarily inside the Super Bowl, but like after the game. How hard would it be for one guy to be in a parking lot across the street from a stadium and just fucking mow down 1,000 fucking people?
Well, that is true, but typically that would be more of a terrorist who would do something like that, maybe.
But dude, are we now at the point where we're not considering Nick Cruz to be a terrorist? Are we not considering Klebold and Harris to be terrorists?
Well, they are, but what drove them to do their acts is being a disgruntled, and again, I'm only focusing on schools here.
Sure.
Being a disgruntled teen. For someone to just randomly start shooting at an event, that would be more just like a not targeted act of violence.
Okay.
Because basically when the kids perpetrate the violence at a school, it's to get back at somebody.
Well, then let's do a different scenario. What would be easier to do more damage at? Going Cruz or Klebold, or being outside of the homecoming game and just whacking students?
Well, I would say outside the homecoming game.
And there would be nothing to stop it. That's my bigger point, is that no matter what kind of security you try to put, unless you're going to tell everybody to stay in their homes and never leave, there's always inherent danger.
Yeah, well, that's why it's called terror.
Yeah,
because it terrifies you not to want to, live a free lifestyle, which is what this country is built on.
Yeah, and some of us aren't willing to give that up. I'm not willing to give that up. I'd rather die than live scared. And that's just me personally. I would rather be dead than living scared. There's just no... What good is life if you're scared all the fucking time? That makes no fucking sense to me.
Well, I have that tattooed on my arm. It's better to die than to live without hope.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's pointless.
Easy. Yep.
All right. So anyway, there's scant evidence that more security guards are going to stem this type of violence.
Right.
But here's the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
There's an abundance of evidence suggesting that more school security means more vulnerable students getting funneled at an early age into the criminal justice system.
Fine. Maybe that's where they belong. Obviously it is. Well, is that wrong?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
My initial reaction to that sentence alone,
mm-hmm.
It's like, why is it funneling somebody into the criminal justice system that just goes to school, learns their studies, mind their own business, and goes home at the end of the day?
Well, it won't. But it's not the reason it'll run more kids into the criminal justice system is because it's not coddling. It's not a coddling.
Oh, you mean these kids are acting out and doing things that are against the law?
Yeah, we're not coddling them to
tell you mean so we're making excuses for bad behavior?
Of course, as we always do.
Oh, see, that wasn't even in my mindset. I thought you were supposed to just go to school and, learn your stuff and behave yourself and then go home and do your homework and, maybe hang out with your friends. I didn't know you were at school causing problems.
You didn't, well, dude, you've been out of school a long time. It's changed.
Oh. I guess if you don't cause problems, there would be no reason to be concerned.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, so this is protecting the troublemakers.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You act like that's rare. That's totally the way it is today.
Oh, okay. Black children are already more likely to get arrested at school. Why is that? Why are they more likely to get arrested at school?
Racism.
Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
I see.
It's a failure of the white man to understand their struggle.
I gotcha.
Get with it, Neely.
In 2012, black children represented only 16% of school-aged children, but 31% of the arrests.
Okay.
And when more cops are in the school, these arrests are more likely to take place.
Right.
Even for minor misbehaviors.
Okay.
It's a phenomenon that advocates call the school to prison called the school to prison pipeline.
Stop it. Jesus. I am so tired of this fucking horseshit white people hate black people at all costs fucking mentality that is put out there. I saw it today I was reading a story that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but it was the same shit. And it was something was said, and the answer was, well, you can't understand what black people go through because you're white.
Okay.
And my answer back was, you fail to understand how many white people I will call out for being a fucking asshole. That is always overlooked in the equation here. If the white people, and let's take it to Nick Cruz, who's allegedly being classified as white these days, even though he's clearly Spanish.
Right. Well, see, that doesn't fit into the narrative that he would be a brown person.
Yeah, so he's white. So fine. If Nick Cruz is white, okay, just play along with me for a minute.
Okay.
Well, let's go back one. We all us white people condemned Trayvon Martin, right?
For the most part, after all the facts came out.
All right, and let's go to one other example. All the white people condemned Michael Brown, the one that reached in and right. We all condemned
in St. Louis, St. Louis area,
and it was clearly because he was a black man, right?
Clearly.
Okay, then let's play this out. So by that standard that is always thrown around out there, when whatever his name was that shot the senator from Arizona, the bald white guy with the crazy eyes.
Yeah, shot Gabby Giffords.
Mm-hmm. We all thought that was fine, right? Because it wasn't a problem because he was white?
No, he had every right to shoot Gabby Giffords because he was a white guy. White. Yeah.
And when the one guy with the crazy hair, the crazy orange hair.
Yeah, the kid who shot up the movie theater in Colorado.
We were all like, well, that's cool because he was white. So that makes it okay, right?
Sure.
As white people are at every turn today categorized as giving somehow more blame to black people than equal blame to assholes. And that is the most singular, most ridiculous take that is being put out there by the liberal fucking left. That somehow, not that we will call out a black guy for being a fucking asshole. If you're a black guy and you're an asshole, fine, you're an asshole. But there is no amount of love and forget me, but for anybody that I know, and I don't know everybody in the world, but for any white guy that I know, when a white guy goes and shoots up a school, shoots up a fucking theater, shoots up a concert hall, shoots up a baseball game, when they go off and do that shit, we do not call them out for their race. We don't downgrade what they did because of their race. Stephen Paddock is a cunt. Stephen Paddock is absolutely a cunt. He's not less of a cunt because he's a white guy. He's the same amount of cunt as every black guy that gets fucking held accountable for doing a shooting as well. Every shooting that goes off in South Side of Chicago this weekend is equally as much of an asshole as Stephen Paddock. And as a white guy, it's not more, it's not less. It's the same. And people need to get off this fucking bullshit of it's invented. I don't know anybody that is living the lifestyle that the media is presenting, that it's some fucking secret plot to fucking make the black guys be fucking more assholeian than the white guys.
Right.
Do you know anybody that thinks that way?
I don't think so.
Other than Phil Ouz.
Right.
It's ridiculous, man.
It is. All right. The more we add security or police forces and so on to schools, the more likely it is that students who are already at risk of being seen as a potential troublemaker,
mm-hmm.
seen as a potential troublemaker.
Yeah.
So this kid is at school. He's sitting in the lunchroom eating his, mac and cheese.
Mm-hmm.
And the security officers just go out there and roust him for no apparent reason.
Right. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, sure.
Black guy, get him.
Yeah. They get swept into the justice system or suspended and pushed out of schools. Why? What did they do to draw attention to themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Were they just sitting there, just drinking their milk and studying their history lesson, and somebody just came up and said, You're out of here, pal.
That's it. And I'm not going to say that doesn't happen sometimes. There are definitely racists out there. So.
Yeah, and that, again, I'm with you that I'm not saying racism does not exist, but for the most part, at least in my 54 years of being on Earth, I have never seen a guy just minding his own business, just getting rousted for no apparent reason. Just,
not at all.
Just sitting there, just minding your own business, and somebody just comes up and starts, rousting them.
Yeah, I mean, has it happened somewhere along the way? Sure. But not enough to base your whole fucking energy, your life energy on defending yourself against that happening to you as a victim.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
The risks are even higher for students who are already more vulnerable. We're worried this continues to be a knee-jerk reaction that politicians have after a school shooting to not deal with the gun violence issue, but instead to throw more money at law enforcement.
Right.
There have been scattered instances in which school security has helped foil an armed intruder, and some studies have found clear benefits of having cops in the schools, as these schools are more likely to have emergency crisis plans in place and receive regular safety inspections. But these benefits come at a steep price, one that could disproportionately impact black and brown students.
Oh, will it?
Who are already more likely to face overly harsh discipline.
Overly harsh discipline.
Overly harsh.
Sure they are.
One study found that schools with police are more likely to refer to students to outside law enforcement for a range of behaviors. There we go. That's the key word right there.
Behaviors?
Behaviors. It's not because you're brown. It's not because you're black.
Yeah.
It's because of your behavior.
Yeah.
Including offenses that are more minor, like vandalism. And another study found that schools with cops had more school arrests for minor misbehaviors like disorderly conduct. Well, then don't get in trouble.
Yeah, don't act like an asshole.
Yeah, stop acting out. And there is also the possibility of police brutality.
Right.
The instinct to increase school security after shooting makes sense. Adding measures of security is a tangible action that school authorities can do to demonstrate to a worried constituency that they are trying to make schools safer. Well, that sounds pretty reasonable to me, isn't it?
Well, it's reasonable, yeah, but then again, you want everything to be handled, on an individual behavioral basis and not on a fucking, racial basis.
Right.
You don't want to protect the black guy because he's a black guy. That's where you're failing, Neely. You should have one system for the evil white guys and then a different, more comprehensive, less invasive system for the black and brown. That's what you're supposed to have.
Okay.
White guys, who gives a fuck what you do with them? Let them kill themselves. That's kind of the theory. Let the white kids just fucking do whatever it is to kill themselves. But you better take care of the black and the brown, because if you don't, then you're failing.
Right.
It's the dumbest logic ever.
I know. So far, we don't have any hard evidence that more police officers in schools make schools safer. Judith Brown is an executive director for the Advancement Project, a civil rights group that works to curb the school-to-prison pipeline. The school-to-prison pipeline.
The school-to-prison pipeline.
Yeah.
Maybe we could start school each day with a big group hug.
Right.
Of everybody, just give each other a hug and say, I love you. And I want to see great things from you today.
Right.
I'd bet if every student did that, then we would have less fucking violence in the schools. What do you think? You think that would work?
I think that would work.
That's probably the solution. And that would definitely put a real crimp in that pipeline, wouldn't it?
You would think so. She said enhanced security measures at school can make buildings look more like war zones and prisons than a nurturing environment.
Okay.
We're worried this continues to be a knee-jerk reaction that politicians have after school shootings, not to deal with the gun violence issue, but instead to throw money at law enforcement, giving parents the perception of safety instead of getting to the root cause of the violence.
But you know what? I'm going to agree with that point, actually. I'm so sick of these fucking politicians, and let's face it, they don't give a fuck. You know, and that's from Trump all the way down. They don't give a fuck. They don't care about this bullshit. The only reason they care about it is because it affects what's going to happen next year in the fucking election. It's given them a platform now to dig in and say, so that when they start campaigning in like November, December of this year, they can say, well, I was a staunch defender of the fucking whatever, the Nicholas Cruz bill for doing bop for schools. And Donald Trump's people weren't. So vote for me. That's what this is about. It's not about, they don't care about these fucking kids. They don't give a shit. Do you think they give a shit?
I don't think they give a shit so much about, you know, I think what it is that, like you and I think in the back of their mind, they think that, well, this is likely to happen, and it does.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate when it does, but there's really nothing we can do about it. But we have constituents out there, and we have the news media out there that are putting pressure on us to say something comforting or say that we're doing our job to prevent this in the future. So we need to come up with some storyline.
Yeah, they just need to stop it. Stop with the fucking thoughts and prayers. Stop with anything. The only thing I want to see is these fucking cocksuckers arguing it out on C-SPAN. Nothing else. I don't want to hear fucking Marco Rubio going into a fucking rigged town hall and getting his head chewed off, but standing up for the conservative movement. And I don't want to hear fucking every one of these knotheads on their fucking Twitter saying, well, we got to get tougher with these laws and we got to protect the children. And shut the fuck up, every one of you, because not a one of you gives a flying fuck. If you give a fuck, write a bill, put it out there, vote it through, make it happen. Until you do that, you're not doing your fucking job anyway, so fuck off.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, they're not doing their job. Their job is not to fucking pander and get a soundbite on Fox News. Their job is to fucking provide some sort of fucking reasonable protection of of first and foremost, people's constitutional rights, and then, you know, based on those constitutional rights, some air of protection day to day. You know, some semblance of laws that are enough to control, you know, complete chaos without becoming a prison system. And they've all forgotten all that. Now it's, dude, most of these politicians, they're just trying to build their name. They're just trying to build their name so that they can become a senator or they can have a potential presidential run later.
Or it's just personal enrichment is what it is, because 9 times out of 10, anyone who's ever served in an elected office, be it Congress or the Senate, when they leave their term after 2, 3, or 4 cycles, they leave their multimillionaires.
Yeah, they put out their book and they're out. Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. Get them out of there. You know, for all the fucking bitching and whining and complaining and talk out of stupid fucking Skeletor Nancy Pelosi's fucking ugly face. You know, what has she done? What has she done to fix a goddamn thing? Nothing. In however many years she has been there, what has she done? What is the Nancy Pelosi bill? What is the Nancy Pelosi legacy? What is it? What is the Chuck Schumer legacy? What is the John McCain legacy? All these fucking career fucking politicians, not a goddamn one of them has done anything with memory that is, you know, that is worthy of hearing. You know, none of it is even remembered. So what are they truly doing? I say they're not doing a fucking thing. Nothing.
I agree with that.